Hi there, Neil Mason here from Applied Insights. In this series of short videos, I'd like to take you through how to build what I call a really offensive data and analytics strategy. Now, in the last video, I explained what I meant by that and talked about the three key components that make up such a strategy. Firstly, focusing on the last mile and making the shift to decision intelligence. Secondly, developing value-based analytics products. Thirdly, creating robust value management, delivery, and tracking processes. So in this video today, we're going to move on and to take a look at the processes around analytics product development. And to do this, we'll use the concept of the product development lifecycle. So here we're looking at the development of a data and analytics product from inception through to the time it's been developed and deployed in the organization and is being adopted. And there is a difference between implementation and adoption. Now we can break the life cycle down into three main stages. First of all, there is demand management. And this is where items of demand are captured and added to the backlog. They then go through a qualification process and a decision is made as to whether to move the demand item into the lab to develop an MVP or a proof of value. And then there's delivery management, which covers the development of the product from the time it goes into the lab through to the point where it's industrialized within the factory. The third process is change management, which is working with the business to deploy the product out into the user base and to gain adoption. Now, this is the really important part of the life cycle that we'll look at later on. Because it's only when products are being deployed and have been successfully adopted can their potential value actually be realized. I mean, that's the last mile. So at any point in time in a mature development process, you would expect to have a number of products in various states along the product lifecycle. So let's pick up on a couple of points in a bit more detail. First of which is, how are you going to capture demand and qualify demand? What's your front door going to look like? How are people going to get their ideas or requests into your demand management process? Well, this could be as simple as an email address or perhaps some kind of ticketing portal. During this demand capture, you need to capture as much information as needed to begin to qualify the potential value to the business if that demand is accepted, as well as the expected effort. There's always a bit of a trade-off, this bit, between getting enough information and being tempted to actually get into solutioning too early in the process. Another thing to be aware of is having a leaky front door. By that I mean front door processes that are actually where the demand can sort of leak into the system without properly coming through the front door and onto the backlog. You know, organizations are built on connections and networks, so inevitably people will try to find ways to get their work done if they don't like the answer they get from the formal process. Now, in the product development process, there are two decision points. The first decision point is whether the product concept has a strong enough value proposition to be worth testing in the lab. And then the second decision point is whether there's sufficient potential value that's being demonstrated to warrant further investment required to be industrialized in the factory. For the initial qualification or concept screening, as I mentioned, you need to capture sufficient information about the product concept in order to be able to quantify it and also prioritize it on the backlog. Now, there are a number of different ways that you can qualify and prioritize data and analytic products or any demand really. One of which is to use a simple prioritization matrix like this one here. You can make an assessment of the expected effort in terms of initial development against the expected value. Now, clearly those with low effort and high value are your low-hanging fruit, whereas high effort and high value are more likely to be larger strategic programs of work that are going to need significant investment and planning. Also, there may be times when you have to take a decision to take on low-value concepts because they may be potentially foundational products for other products to be built off on top of, delivering potential value down the line. Then, of course, there are products that you may decide that should be done at all. So that's one approach, and there are plenty of others out there. For example, Gartner has a data and analytics demand framework, which they call RAW, which stands for risk, opportunity, appetite, and return. So this is a more complex and potentially robust approach, which aligns the initiatives and the product concepts to the expected strategic benefits. I think, however, the key here is not to over-engineer an approach for where you are on your journey. Your level of analytics product development maturity will probably dictate which approach will be suitable for you. And again, don't let perfect get in the way of good. It's better to have something relatively simple to start off with than something complicated, which is difficult for stakeholders to understand and for you to manage. So when a product concept is accepted for development, there's always a mobilization stage because resources may not be immediately available, there may be not enough capacity in the system, and this is the time to get the lab sprint process and cadence set up and organized, and your agile ceremonies arranged. So there's never to be a sort of area of holding ground for products before they actually enter into the lab. But as we've seen in the previous video, products are developed in the lab to prove their potential value. They would then go through a further qualification process based on the results of the POV against the original value definitions and metrics, and if qualified, would then be industrialized in the factory before being delivered to the business. Now, the whole process of industrialization or data ops isn't something I'm going to get into in this series of videos. So next time, I'm going to be looking at what happens after a product is deployed to the business. I'll see you then.